Hello, BookTube. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the books I have in my Alibris wish list. I did a similar video a few months ago where we looked at I took a look at my book depository wish list and cleared some of that out. And I think it's real past time I did the same to my Alibris wish list and eventually my Amazon wish list. But first, before I get to the wish list, I would like to address my last video. There is a comment at the end of it, or in the comment section, that is inappropriate, and my first instinct was to delete it, to remove it, mute it, ban it, whatever. But then I got to thinking, could this be one of those bots? And what better way to infect an account than by a comment that would automatically, without thinking about it, be deleted, to banned and muted. So I'm holding off until I'm sure it's it's just a troll and not a bot. I know there's a new one running around that I'm calling the Banana Love It, because it's the icons of a banana and then it's always love it. So anyway, but let's get on to my wish list, and then hopefully I'll go ahead and take care of that inappropriate comment one way or another. Okay, so I have in my Alibris wish list 327 books. So to make this reasonable, we'll go through the bottom 20. So we'll end up at 307 or 300, or if it's 25 minutes in length. Okay? So book 327 is Flashing Swords, edited by Lin Carter. This is a 1970s anthology of sword and sorcery. I checked it up from my local library years ago and quite enjoyed a lot of the stories there. And I have wanted it ever since. But, yeah. So I'm thinking seriously, even though, like right now, my relationship with science fiction and fantasy is a bit unsettled. I'm pretty sure I will be coming back to it, and I do want to maintain and expand my science fiction and fantasy collection. So there's like this door to my closet. I do eventually want to cover up with more bookshelves and expand my science fiction and fantasy collection from pretty much here, filling that up, and over to this bookshelf here. Assuming, obviously, I remain in this apartment and in this room. But I think definitely Flashing Swords is a book I do want to keep. The next up is Shadows by E.C. Blake. It's the sequel to her novel, I think it's a woman, Masks, which I have. Haven't gotten around to reading it yet. I really should. So I think I'll keep this around. Next up is The Sea Watch by Adrian Tchaikovsky. It is book 5 or 6 in his Shadows of the Apt series. I have the first batch of books, I think the first 4. And I've read Empire and Black and Gold. I think that's the first book, which I have mixed feelings about. But I will kind of come back to it maybe later this year or early next year, and then decide whether or not I want to continue with the series or just end it where I have it. Next up we have a Gourmet Today, more than 1,000 only recipes for the contemporary kitchen, edited by Ruth Reichel. So this is one of my books I really, really want. I have this weird fascination and obsession with Gourmet, the magazine, and the anthology cookbooks that came out. I have the first one. It's in a yellow dust jacket, and I had the second one, the sequel, this one I'm talking about now, for about a year, and I got rid of it when I moved into this apartment because I didn't have the shelf space. But I have regretted it ever since, and I would like to re-add this book to my collection, definitely, and as sort of a bookend for my cookbook collection, which is in the kitchen. Which, when I do my library tour starting in December, the cookbooks will be the first books that I will kind of for the tour. So next up is Japanese Cooking, the Traditions, Techniques, Ingredients, and Recipes by Kazuko, Kazuko and Yasuko Fukuoka. I'm wanting to say this is a cookbook that I've had my eye on for nearly 20 years, probably. I could be wrong. Because I know there was a cookbook, a Japanese cookbook, that I wanted when I was in Austin that I never got around to getting. So I'm not entirely sure if this is that book or not. I mean, I already have a Japanese cookbook in my collection, and I don't know necessarily if I want to expand and add more, or just have like one cookbook for representing like a national cuisine. I need to decide on that. Next, we have Caravaggio by Peter Robb. This is a biography of Caravaggio. Has an awesome cover, or at least one of the editions has an awesome cover, which is probably why I added it to the collection, to my wish list. And this is one of the books that I saw on Steve Donahue's channel, his bookshelf tour. A lot of the books in this wish list come from me watching Steve Donahue's library tours or bridal book hauls. Next we have a double, 321 and 320. They're both How to Cook Everything by Mark Bittman. The 321 is the 10th anniversary edition. 320 is the original edition. And I know there's a third edition that's come out this year to celebrate, or late last year to celebrate the 20th anniversary of How to Cook Everything. So honestly, I don't think I really need both cookbooks in my collection. And I really need to think about whether or not I want, how many big anthology cookbooks, or just general, the big collections of recipes. I know I want to do the gourmet set. I think I want to do probably How to Cook Everything. I would like to have that in my collection, but I don't know necessarily about any of the others, because there are quite a few big cookbooks that I would like. Although I think I do need to sort of limit how many, because there's a definite limit to where I have my cookbooks. And I think I can only do or add maybe 10 to 15 more cookbooks where they are, and I don't want to have to fight for space in the kitchen to add more cookbooks. So I need to decide which of these two I want to boot. Probably will be the updated edition, because that one I think is more expensive. Another book we have, I'm kind of in the same vein, is Cooks Illustrated. 2,000 recipes from 20 years of America's most trusted food magazine edited, well, it's an anthology of recipes from Cook's Illustrated, which at the time would have been edited by Christopher Kimball. For those of you who don't know, Cook's Illustrated is the magazine that inspires America's Test Kitchen and Cook's Country, which are two cooking shows on PBS. And one of my favorite, or several of my favorite cooking shows, they also have a presence on YouTube. And this anthology cookbook has intrigued me for some time. I checked it out from my library years ago and quite liked it. So I'm kind of tempted to add this to my collection, but it has a lot of copies I've been seeing lately when I've checked to see how much copies of this book are quite expensive, and I don't know necessarily if if I have like both gourmets and maybe one or two really big ones, do I really need one of these? I already have Cook's Illustrated, or America's Test Kitchens cookbook for cooking for two, so I don't know necessarily if I really want to add another one by them. And that also would go for their baking book, because I know I want to get the Martha Stewart baking book, and I've also pre-ordered Claire Saffitz's of Bon Appetit, her dessert person book, which is coming out in October, hopefully. Okay, now that that long cooking ramble is over, let's move on to... Well, first let me go and see what the current prices are for these three. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, let's go here. Okay, so moving on from cookbooks, we move into mythology. So 318 is the Library of Greek Mythology by Apollodorus. Definitely a book I think I want to keep in my wish list. It's a compendium of Greek mythology, which I'm quite interested in. And I mean, I have a small collection of Greek mythology, and I would like to expand it. Continuing with mythology books, we have the new Larousse Encyclopedia of Mythology, edited by Robert Graves. I had this book when I was a kid and quite enjoyed it. It's a compendium of a lot of mythologies. A good chunk of it is Greek mythology. Greek and Roman mythology, and then there's like Egyptian mythology, other mythologies in there, filled with glorious pictures. So yeah, so I want that back. Next we have Hittite Myths by Harry A. Hoffner and Gary M. Beckman, one of whom is the translator. This again continues on with my mythology interests. Also, one of my my writing projects will be heavily inspired by mythology, and I do want to have sort of a wider base for inspiration than just Greek mythology. So I think the Hittite Myths will definitely help with that. Next, we leave mythology behind and we move to literary fiction. This is Anti-Story, an anthology of experimental fiction by Phillip Stevick. It came out in the 70s, and I quite actually like what I've read about the book. Although that, I mean, the only copy would probably be a 70s copy, kind of makes me concerned about quality or... but definitely I think a book I really do want to add eventually. Particularly if I do stick with my sort of my brief or my current sort of desire to expand my literary, contemporary, realistic fiction collection, or as parts of my collection. And anti-story, I think I first heard about from Wonder Book by Jeff Vandermeer. He recommends a lot of other writing books or books by other contributors, and this was mentioned. So next we have Greeks and Greek Love, a bold and new exploration of the ancient world by James Davidson. So this book takes a radically different approach to the interpretation of, for lack of a better term, Greek homosexuality. The standard interpretation is one of, I think, temporariness of class and education, and this one takes a rather different approach to that. And I've read it before and quite enjoyed it, and I would like to add it eventually into my collection. Although if I can only find a decently priced copy. Next we have A War of Witches, A Journey into the Underworld of the Contemporary Aztecs by Timothy J. Knab. This book is very similar to The Serpent and the Rainbow, where an anthropologist goes to study and becomes embroiled in the supernatural aspects of the culture he's studying. In Serpent and the Rainbow, it was Haiti, and War of Witches, it is rural Mexico. And I've read this book several years ago and quite enjoyed it. You could probably question the veracity of the book quite a lot, I think, but it is certainly very interesting and I think quite inspirational for some projects. Oh yeah, definitely want to add that and reread it. Let's see, how are we doing on time? Okay, I can get a few more. Next is Forbidden Colors by Yukio Mishima. I think a few years ago I had a desire to collect some or get more Yukio Mishima books. I only have one, and I would like to get some more, and I would love to see a lot of his work translated into English. He has a very limited, I think, presence in English, although I think that might be improving, but I would like to see some more. There's one book by his that I really, really want to see in English. When I was in college, I took during the summer an Intro to Japanese Culture class, and the professor, I think, alerted me to or let me borrow a copy of his movie about Yukio Mishima, where part of the narrative is sort of a biopic of Mishima, and then other parts were scene adaptations of his novels. And one of the novel scenes I thought was really striking and powerful, and I really want to read that book. But I don't think it's ever been translated into English. Next we have two books by Dennis Wheatley. He is, or he was, a British writer of thrillers, supernatural thrillers. Most famous, I would think, is The Devil Rides Out, which was adapted in the late 60s, I think 68, as a movie starring Christopher Lee, which is phenomenal. And the two I have in here are The Eunuch of Stamboul and The Used Dark Forces. One, I'm blanking on what The Eunuch of Stamboul is about, but The Used Dark Forces is sort of a supernatural interpretation of World War II, or inserting supernatural elements into World War II. Next we have Beloved and God by Royston Lambert. This is a biography of Adrian that I've been quite interested in getting for a while. Following that we have The Art of Time and Fiction as Long as It Takes by Joan Silber. This is another entry into the Art of series of writing essays. These aren't necessarily as much like writing guides as they are these specific authors meditating and writing essays on certain elements of writing. And they are, so far they have been phenomenal. I have 4 of them. I want to get this one and the one by Edwidge Denicott, and probably more, but so far they have all been phenomenal. And then we have some more cookbooks. So I'll do these cookbooks and then we'll call it a day. So Simply Nigella by Nigella Lawson, Mexican Today by Patty Hinnich, My Japanese Table by Deborah Samuels, and Martha Stewart's Baking Handbook, obviously by Martha Stewart, or at least edited by Martha Stewart. So late last year, I got into a kick for cookbooks and checking out cookbooks from the library to see if there are any I would like to add to my collection, because I do want to expand my cookbook collection. So I checked out these 4. I really liked the Simply Nigella. That was really several interesting recipes I would like to try. Mexican Today, I think I would prefer a different cookbook. There were some interesting recipes, but I don't know necessarily if I really want to add this one to my collection. Although I do love Patty Hinnich's her cooking shows. I didn't particularly care for My Japanese Table. I think there are other better Japanese cookbooks. The one thing about that book that I thought was striking was she included a recipe for dango, and I do have a strong desire to try Japanese sweets, particularly dango. So, yeah. And then Martha Stewart's Baking Handbook. It is phenomenal, and I think I really want to add that to my collection. So yeah. So that was part 1 of my Alibris Wishlist tour. I don't know if I'll do another one of these. I might if I'm bored or I have nothing better to do. I might come back and do some more. Maybe eventually we can do a much better job of weeding through the weeds of what I have. So I will sign off for now, and I will be back tomorrow with a tour, a book haul. They're still there. I haven't gotten the final book that I'm expecting in. There's a small chance that I could get it in tomorrow before I film the haul, but I seriously doubt it. So if it doesn't come in, it will be the first book to feature. Well, maybe not the first book to feature, but it will definitely be hanging out there until my next book haul. So and then also weekly reads too tomorrow. So I will see you tomorrow, and until then, thank you, BookTube. Have a great afternoon, and stay safe.